Hello to all my dear followers. Welcome to the third season of What Naruto Was a Prodigy Hated by His Family and the Reincarnation of Indra and Ashura. More fanfics are coming soon to the channel, so as always I ask for your like, subscription, and comment.
Conflict in the forest. The group was advancing through the forest. Naruto said it would be best to proceed slowly out of consideration for their injured companions, and so instead of leaping from branch to branch, they walked briskly. However, that wasn't the only reason. When the Kumo ninja saw Sakura, they realized it would be impossible for her to keep up. Sakura was too thin, too scrawny, and lacking in muscle. The Kumo ninja were surprised she even had the right to wear their headband. It was clear that the requirements for graduating in Konoha were much easier. The Uzumaki was so focused on the road and staying away from danger that he didn't notice the turbulent emotions the girl in his arms was feeling. Shio was an emotional mess at that moment, and she didn't know why. She thought it was because of her encounter with Orochimaru, and the anxiety had overwhelmed her, which is why she felt so safe in her older brother's arms. But then she could also feel her heart pounding and the heat rising in her cheeks, which made the blonde with pigtails wonder if she was. Impossible, she screamed in her head. The very idea was ridiculous. They had just spoken for the first time, they had just met, and most importantly, he was her brother. The blonde banished the thought deep in her mind. Shio was excited and happy to be with her brother, blushing because she must have been sick somehow, and she felt safe. Half an hour later, the group stopped at a spot where a tree stood much larger than the others, hollow and seemingly the perfect place to spend the night. The redhead climbed inside and saw that there was enough room for everyone thanks to the large branches, which meant they wouldn't have to sleep on the ground. Naruto, alright, we'll spend the night here. Leave the wounded inside, and I'll take care of their injuries. Yugo, Guren, Omoi, Samui, Tayuya, Fu, Karen, Yujito, and Karui, I want you to stand guard. Kimimaro, Haku, and Suigetsu, go hunt for something to eat. Everyone nodded, and the Kumo people left the wounded in the tree and went out and started watching while Kimimaro, Haku, and Suigetsu went out to look for some animal. Sakura, wait, who put you in charge? I screamed, the pink-haired girl yelled. Yakumo nervously watched the scene, while the Uchiha and Shio glared furiously at Sakura for yelling at Naruto. The red-haired boy looked at her with a stoic expression. Naruto, who else was going to be in charge if not me? Obviously it was going to be me, but the pink-haired girl glared at him furiously. Sakura, don't look at me like that, idiot. I was the smartest kunoichi of my generation. I'm the most qualified to be in charge. Naruto remained silent until he answered. Naruto, do you seriously think that just because you're intelligent makes you more qualified than me? The redhead's cold tone sent shivers down the pink-haired girl's spine. Naruto, I'm someone who's been on missions where life is constantly in danger, and on several occasions, my sensei has put me in charge. I'm the most qualified because I have something you lack, experience. In my eyes, you're nothing more than a pathetic excuse for a kunoichi who stood by and did nothing while your comrades were defeated by Orochimaru. Don't expect me to obey a cowardly, inept girl who, when faced with danger, can only wet herself. Sakura stepped back, visibly shaken. The redhead's words had struck her harder than anything else in her life. With teary eyes, the pink-haired girl looked at the other Konoha girls for support. Yakumo looked uncomfortable, and Shio and the Uchiha girls glared at her as if they wanted to rip her head off, just as the Kumo women present seemed intent on killing her. Alone and without support, the pink-haired girl fell to her knees, her bangs covering her eyes. Sakura, I'm going to set traps. So she ran off, but everyone could see tears streaming down her face. Yakumo felt a little unwell. Yakumo, Naruto-san, don't you think you've gone a little too far? Naruto placed his hand on Shio's chest, who blushed in embarrassment, but the redhead said nothing and began to heal her. Naruto, I haven't said anything that wasn't true. I don't know what the hell she's doing in this exam when it's obvious from a mile away that she's a fangirl who hasn't trained in her life. And he continued with his task. The Konoha ninja watched in fascination as Naruto's right hand lit up, and Shio began to feel the pain fade. Naruto continued healing the blonde for a few minutes until all her wounds closed. Shio, incredible, it doesn't hurt anymore. Yakumo and the Uchiha were surprised, but the brunette saw that Naruto did the same thing he did with Shio and began to heal her. 20 minutes later, Yakumo, Sai, Zora, Hitomi, Mito, and Nagato had already been healed, and only Sasuke remained. It hadn't been necessary to heal the other Uchiha because they hadn't sustained any injuries. Naruto approached the still unconscious Uchiha to heal his wounds, but when he touched the Uchiha's chest, he stopped. Naruto opened his eyes in surprise. He used his Kagura eye and, to his astonishment, felt the Uchiha's body healing itself, though the process was painful. The redhead then saw a seal with 3 tomo, similar to the Sharingan. Naruto, Shio. Can you come here for a moment? The blonde girl who had been talking to Yakumo stopped and looked at her brother. Namikaze approached and was shocked to see the seal on his neck. Shio, what is that? Naruto, you hadn't seen it before. Shio, wait a minute, is that the place where the pedophile gave her the hickey? I shouted, pointing at the seal. A drop of sweat fell from Naruto's eye because of that last part. Naruto, hickey. Shio, that damn snake was obsessed with Sasuke, spouting nonsense about power and joining him. Suddenly, it stretched out its neck and bit Sasuke. Where is that thing? Naruto, he's more like Menma and Mito than I thought. But he looked at the seal again, trying to think of how to remove it, but it was impossible without risking his life further. Then he remembered a conversation he'd had with his friends a few years ago, so he turned back to the entrance. Naruto, Juice, Tayuya. They both looked at the redhead who gestured for them to come closer. Tayuya, what's happening? But both she and Yugo made a face of deep disgust and contempt upon seeing the seal. Naruto, that's what I think it is. Yugo nodded, so the redhead sighed. Naruto, what do you propose we do? Tayuya, it's best to leave it as it is. Doing anything to the seal now that it's adapting to the body would be dangerous. But even if we do either of those things, there's only a 10 out of 100 chance it will survive. Those words earned a shout from the girls present, especially the Uchiha girls. Satsuki, wait, there's nothing we can do. Shio, Sasuke is an arrogant idiot, but he's still a teammate. She said, worried. Naruto, I'm sorry, I can't do anything without risking his life even more. The Uchiha fell to their knees, sadness etched on their faces. A few minutes later, everyone prepared for sleep. Sakura set several traps just in case. The women of Konoha took care of the 7 unconscious Konoha genin, and Naruto placed several seals on the tree, concealing it with a genjutsu. When Sakura returned, Shio and Yakumo told her about Sasuke's critical condition, and she didn't take it well, but there was nothing they could do. Kimimaro, Haku, and Suigetsu had also returned, though they appeared to be covered in blood. Kimimaro, Naruto-sama, we found 4 wild boars for dinner. Haku, and we also got this. Then Yuki pulled a scroll from the ground. Suigetsu, we encountered a Kusa team when we found some boars, killed them, and took their scroll. So everyone started eating the boar until nightfall. The atmosphere was tense, no one said a word. The Kumo girls ate quietly, while the Konoha girls didn't know what to say, especially the Uchiha girls, who wanted to tell him the truth about that day. But even though they weren't to blame, they felt they had to earn Naruto's forgiveness because they hadn't done anything to prevent what had happened to him. Shio was the one who broke the silence. Shio, what are you going to do after this? Naruto, after what? Shio, you know, after everyone else wakes up. We're still in the middle of the exam and we need to get the scrolls. Naruto, well, we already have the scrolls for both of our teams, so tomorrow morning we'll go to the tower, and you guys? The Konoha girls looked uncomfortable, but Yakumo answered. Yakumo, in theory, we teamed up with Sakura and Mito and Sayuri's teams to make the exam easier. On the day, Sayuri and Mito's teams got the scrolls they were missing, but Sakura and I weren't so lucky. That Orochimaru guy burned their Earth scroll, and we still have our Sky scroll. Naruto looked at them carefully before taking the 3 scrolls they had left over and handed them over. Shio, Oni-chan. Naruto, here, after all, we already have what we needed, these are useless to us. Shio, thank you. The next day, Kurama, hey pup, don't you think you should intervene before they get killed? After everyone went to sleep the next day, Naruto initially wanted to go to the tower as quickly as possible. However, in the morning, Sakura, Shio, and Yakumo woke up very early and wanted to go out for a while. But when they went outside, Odo's team attacked them because they were out of range of Naruto's seals. Even though they were discovered, the Kumo people didn't seem to care much. After all, they could easily kill them. However, Sakura chose that moment to prove she was a kunoichi. Initially, Naruto would have dismissed her, but Shio insisted he leave the job to them. Naruto reluctantly agreed, and up until that point, he, along with his group and the Uchiha, had remained on the sidelines. But things worsened when another Konoha genin appeared, professing his love for Sakura and his desire to defeat Odo's team. Everyone recognized the genin by his strange green spandex outfit and enormous eyebrows, and Naruto was excited to see Rock Lee's abilities. Rock Lee fought well, demonstrating his mastery of taijutsu, but it wasn't enough, and he was defeated by Dozu's sonic waves. It wasn't that the boy was weak, he simply chose the wrong opponent. Yakumo and Shio were defeated by a surprise attack from Sakura while watching Lee's fight, which disappointed the redhead. Sakura, meanwhile, was kidnapped by Kin, who grabbed her by the hair and was holding her captive to watch him kill Sasuke. Naruto thought it was time for them to intervene, but to his surprise, Sakura cut her hair with a kunai and began fighting Saku. Although she was badly injured, she managed to damage the Oto ninja's arms, but another Konoha team appeared, Team 10, who had witnessed the killing of Kimimaro and Taiyuya the day before. The three Konoha genin managed to cause trouble for the Oto ninja. The blonde possessed Kin's mind, and the Nara boy paralyzed Dozu with his shadow, but it wasn't enough because they hadn't considered that their enemies didn't care about their comrades, and the blonde who was controlling Kin was badly injured by an attack from Saku. Naruto sighed, and along with his team, appeared to comfort Sakura, Shio, and Yakumo. Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru watched them in horror, while Dozu and Saku looked surprised. Saku, you better leave if you don't want us to kill you. Kimimaro and Taiyuya didn't take it very well. Kimimaro, Naruto-sama, I can kill him. The cold tone of his voice frightened everyone except those from Kumo. Naruto was about to reply, but he sensed a powerful chakra behind him. Knowing who it was, he answered, Naruto, that won't be necessary, there's already someone interested in doing that. That confused everyone, but a certain Uchiha emerged from the tree in full view of everyone, his left arm and neck covered in black markings, which surprised everyone even more. But the Uchiha's gaze fell upon the pink-haired girl. Sasuke, Sakura, who did that to you? I asked, my voice rising with anger. No one said anything, so surprised were they by the Uchiha's change in appearance, until someone acted arrogantly. Saku, it was us, she said without a care. The pink-haired girl looked at Sasuke's condition with fear. Sakura, Sasuke, calm down, whatever it is, it's infusing me with power. The power he gave me, I finally understand. I need revenge, even if I have to sell my soul to the devil, he said, looking at the one who claimed to have injured his partner. Sasuke, so that's why you're going to pay, he said coldly as the tattoos expanded, covering his face and his other arm. Shikamaru, Ino, return to your body. Choji, come here. Her companions readily agreed, and the blonde released her jutsu, returning to her body. The Akimichi then ran towards Shikamaru. The Uchiha slowly and deadly approached the Oto ninjas. Saku, ha, you think you're so strong, huh? Now you'll see. He said this, and a great current of air shot from his hands toward Sasuke. The problem was that the wounded, like the Kumo team and the Uchiha, were behind him. Then the waves of air created a large cloud of smoke. Saku, hee, I wonder how far his remains have flown. Sasuke, who are you talking to? The ninja from Oto opened his eyes and tried to turn around, but he felt his arms being grabbed and pulled back while he was on his knees. Everyone was shocked to see Sasuke forcibly subduing Saku. But then they all watched as the cloud of smoke dissipated and they saw a dome made of chakra. They saw Taiyuya using chakra chains to create the dome, which protected everyone from the attack. Everyone was amazed by the technique until the dome disappeared, leaving only the chains. Saku. Ah. Everyone's attention turned as Saku fell to the ground and Sasuke stood on top of him with a cruel grin. It wasn't hard to guess what had happened. Most likely, the Uchiha had broken the Oto ninja's arms. The raven-haired man turned his gaze to the only Oto ninja still standing. Sasuke, you're next, I'll have more fun with you. Everyone in Konoha watched in fear as Sasuke approached Dozo menacingly. But someone stopped him. Sakura, stop. The pink-haired girl said that she got up as best she could and hugged the Uchiha from behind. Sakura, please, you're not like this, please don't continue. The Uchiha turned to see Haruno's sad expression, and when he saw the tears in her eyes, he lost all will to fight. The marks began to recede towards her neck, where the seal originated. Naruto, well, it's over. Then he looked at his sister who was looking at him curiously. Naruto, what am I going to do with you? Not even a day has passed and you still can't defend yourself. The blonde blushed. Shio, it's not my fault, I had to fight Sakura. Naruto, of course, and the fact that you were defeated for letting your guard down is not your fault. Shio's blush deepened. Shio, I'm sorry. Naruto, I won't always be there to help you. Then Naruto began to heal her. Naruto, someone needs me to heal a wound. Team 10 didn't move an inch. But they saw Sakura approaching with Sasuke. But Naruto noticed something. Naruto, what happened to Oto's team? He said this as he began to heal Sasuke, who was on the ground. Sakura, they're gone. Naruto, they let a potentially dangerous team go. You could have told us to take care of it. Sakura, I told you this was my battle, I didn't want you interfering. Tayuya, if it weren't for the shield she created, they would already be dead. Sasuke, thank you. The redhead looked into the Uchiha's eyes. Sasuke, you know, for saving my comrades. While the Uzumaki was concentrating on healing the wounded, he began to hear a commotion behind him, but he ignored it, thinking it was just the others talking. However, the healing became somewhat complicated because of two very annoying people. Menma/Mito, Sakura, what happened to your hair? Naruto winced in pain. Two idiots had yelled at the top of their lungs right next to his ear. Turning around, he recognized Menma and Mito's blonde hair. Sakura, oh, I just wanted to get a new hairstyle. But then Menma and Mito realized their brother was there. The normal thing would have been to greet him or crack a joke to break the ice. Unfortunately, Menma Namikaze and Mito Namikaze weren't normal. Menma, what are you doing here? He yelled while pointing at him. The redhead's eyebrow lifted at his brother's annoyance. Naruto, healing your partner, now shut up and let me concentrate. The blondes were going to respond but they noticed the presence of Team 10. Myth, what are you guys doing here? Shikamaru, it would be too troublesome to tell it now, so let's leave it for later. Choji was next to Shikamaru helping Zora to get up while Ino was helping Sai who had just woken up. Sakura, your brother and they have helped us. Menma/Mito, seriously, even with the snake girl? How did you defeat her? Did you use some amazing jutsu? What was it? Can you show me? Why are you wearing so little clothing? Why are you a redhead? Pong! The sound echoed throughout the place, and everyone looked on with a drop of sweat and saw Shio and Nagato with their fists smoking and stuck in Menma and Mito's heads. Shio, idiots, stop bothering Oni-chan, can't you see he's busy? While both blondes held their heads in pain. Menma, damn, you didn't need to hit me. Besides, who are you calling a baka? Baka. Shio, you idiot. Menma, baka. Shio, baka. Menma, baka. Shio, baka. Naruto ignored the two siblings and began healing Sakura. Meanwhile, Team B also left for the tower with the others, leaving only Naruto, Yugo, and Kimimaro behind on Naruto's orders. In the shadows, two individuals were watching the group, one with curiosity and the other with intense hatred, though that hatred was directed solely at the three Kyumo genin. He reached his breaking point and launched himself headlong, intending to kill the Kyumo ninja. But mid-air, Kimimaro intercepted him with a kick that the stranger blocked, though he was still sent flying a little further. He landed on his feet in a fighting stance, and the other person stood beside him, several kunai in hand. The Namikaze brothers stopped arguing and turned their attention to the two strangers, as did the rest of their friends. Kimimaro, may I ask why you tried to attack us? The man answered. To kill him, Kumo trash like you doesn't deserve anything better than that. 10-10, Neji, we were only supposed to come here to get Lee back. Kimimaro, I see, so you're just a simple insect with a grudge against our village. The tone in which he said it made Hyuga almost dive headfirst into him. Kimimaro, Naruto-sama, I can kill him. Those from Konoha, with the exception of Team 10, looked at him strangely. Naruto, no, Kimimaro, we've had enough excitement for one day. I suppose they've come for their partner. The girl nodded, but the Hyuga didn't entirely agree. Neji, not only that, I came to finish you off, he said as he adopted his taijutsu stance. Naruto was about to answer, but someone else spoke up more vocally. Menma, don't even think we'll let you hurt Oni-chan. Shio was just like Menma and also got on guard like everyone else except for Team 10 who were scared. Neji was furious because those idiots were standing in the way of his destiny, but then his companion's voice. 10-10, Neji, leave it, we're outnumbered. You'll have another chance. The Hyuga reluctantly lowered his stance, as did the others, while 10-10 approached Lee, all of them thinking he would be gentle and give her some kind of treatment. Yeah, right, 10-10, wake up, Lee, he said as he shook it. Lee, 10-10, what are you doing here? 10-10, isn't it obvious we came to save your ass? Naruto, were the people from Konoha always this weird, or did I just never notice? Kurama, actually, they always have been, he thought to himself as the fox laughed. 10 minutes later, the Hyuga team had already withdrawn, and now another argument had broken out. Menma, why didn't you support us when that idiot threatened Oni-chan? He told Team 10. Shikamaru, it's kind of complicated to explain. Menma, complicated. Oni-chan saved our butts. Shikamaru, and we are very grateful, but, he fell silent while nervously looking at the three Kumo ninjas, especially the albino. Naruto, but we didn't make a very good impression on them when we met them yesterday. Team 10 froze. Shikamaru, so I was right, you saw us. Then why didn't they kill us? Everyone in Konoha was in shock. Shio, sure Shika, what are you talking about? Ino, he killed them. We saw how that albino and the red-haired girl who created that shield suddenly appeared and killed 4 Konoha teams. Everyone present looked at the albino, some with fear and others with fury. Menma, you bastard, why did you do it when all you needed was a scroll? Kimimaro, those cockroaches insulted Naruto-sama. Silence fell over the place. Sakura, and that's it, just for that reason, that doesn't seem like a sufficient reason to me. Kimimaro, for me, it was. Menma and Mito glared furiously at the albino, but their fury shifted towards Naruto. Myth, and you're not going to say anything. Naruto, I should. They both became furious. Menma, of course. Konoha is your home, your birthplace. Are you going to let that idiot get away with killing your people? Myth, just like that idiot redhead. A great murderous instinct was felt throughout the clearing, causing everyone in Konoha to be terrified beyond measure and having great difficulty breathing, especially Menma and Mito who had to look in fear at the psychopathic and hateful face that Naruto sent them. But what terrified them the most was that the redhead's right eye turned into a red eye with a slit pupil. Naruto, my people, you mean the people who cried out for my death from the moment I was born? You're talking about the people who tried to kill me from the day I was born? You're talking about the people who gouged out my eye and left me with a scar the size of my face? Let's get one thing straight, I am not part of this disgusting village, nor of their family, and I never will be. He said this as he turned around with Yugo and Kimimaro. Everyone watched in fear as the redhead left, but only one person spoke. Shio, Oni-chan wait. But it was too late, the Kumo ninjas had already left. The blonde had a heavy heart and a tremendous desire to kill those idiots Menma and Mito. Hi everyone. I want to thank you all for the 1000 views on my first story. I'm speechless with gratitude and can only say please keep reading my stories. I also have to let you know that I'm going back to school on Monday, so I won't be able to upload parts of my stories as frequently, but I'll do my best. Preliminaries. Naruto, Yugo, and Kimimaro finally arrived at the tower where they had met up and saw the deformed structure. There were broken panels, pipes scattered haphazardly everywhere, and vines growing all over the place. If you asked anyone, you'd say it was a building constructed by someone with absolutely no sense of how to build. But they didn't really care. Everyone was preoccupied with what had happened a few minutes earlier with the Konoha ninja after Yugo and Kimimaro told them what Menma and Mito had said to Naruto. Everyone was furious and wanted to kill those two idiots. Naruto was lost in thought about that conversation. Konoha, her home. What a shitty idea. This damned village was the closest thing to hell. She hated being here with all her soul. When Menma and Mito confronted him about not doing anything to Kimimaro and Taiyuya for killing what they considered his people, rage clouded his mind. Those bastards would never be his people, and he would never feel mercy for them. He could never forget what happened here, no matter how much time passed. One day later, Naruto was walking peacefully until he bumped into a girl. Naruto, excuse me, no problem. Then Naruto helps her up and stares at her, realizing she's the redhead from Suna. Meanwhile, the redhead recognized him and saw that he was the boy who, for some reason she didn't know, felt a great interest in him, and also a certain raccoon in her mind was telling her to make him her partner. By the way, I'm Ari, she said cheerfully. Naruto Uzumaki. Ari, oh, I remember now, seriously, you and your team did all those missions. Naruto, yes, we did them. Also, I'm here all alone. Ari, well, I was looking for my siblings Gary and Temari. Naruto, I'll go with you. Ari blushed at that. Ari, of course. In a few minutes they arrived at a room where they saw a redhead with long hair, a girl with medium-length red hair, a brown-haired boy with short hair, and a blue-haired boy with shark-like teeth and a bandaged sword on his back. The last three wore the Kiri headbands. Gary, where did you go, Ari? Ari, I went out to train for a while and when I came back I couldn't find them. Then those in the room noticed Naruto's presence. Wait a minute, you're Naruto Uzumaki. The blue-haired man said. Naruto, yes, because. Ari, well, while I was looking for them, I also ran into him and he helped me find them. Gary, oh, well, nice to meet you, my name is Gary. The Kiri team also showed up. Girl, hello, my name is Ki Terumi. Boy, hello, my name is Yuko Terumi. Blue-haired, hello, my name is Chojuro. Ari, oh, hi guys, it's been a while. Ki, if from that mission we find ourselves on after the Kiri War. Naruto, so the civil war is over. Yuko, yes, a year ago the war ended because it seemed the previous Mizuki Jigura was being controlled by a genjutsu, but thanks to the efforts of Mei-sensei and Zabusa-sama we managed to free him from the genjutsu, but after seeing what he did, he named Mei-sensei as the new Mizuki. Naruto, and how has Zabusa been doing? Ki, you know him. Naruto, well, who do you think convinced him to help them? Chojuro, I know, but how did you defeat him when you were only 12 years old? Yuko, and to answer your question, well, she's had some difficult days as she's been working hard to earn the respect of the people of Kiri. Naruto, well, regarding your question, it's simple. Apparently, he used up all his chakra in a single technique, and his mist hiding jutsu was useless because I could sense his presence through my sensory abilities. Ki, by the way, how has Gaara been? The two brothers in the arena lowered their heads. Gary, well, he's still the same, he's still behaving that way. I doubt he'll ever stop being so violent. Naruto, they could tell their story. The two sighed. The Kiri watched attentively, as they knew nothing about the lives of Suna's brothers. Ari, well, you see, 15 years ago our mother died shortly after we were all born, and our father divided Shikaku into 3 parts. He divided the young part into 2 parts, which were sealed in me and Gary. And the entire Ine part was sealed in Gaara. Since then, we were loved by the people because we had the young part. But Gaara wasn't, because having the negative part made him hated by all the people of Suna, and since then he's become very cold and violent and easily controlled. Even though we love him, he doesn't love us in the slightest, she said as tears streamed from her eyes. But Naruto approached and hugged her from behind, causing her to calm down and become redder than her hair. Shikaku, young when they will have wild sex and also when the wedding will be, he told her telepathically, making the girl blush even more. The minutes passed as Naruto talked with them and apparently formed new friendships. 3 days later, Minato stood in the middle of a vast hall on the first floor of the Forest of Death Tower. This hall was actually an arena. Minato himself was positioned on a small, semicircular platform, and behind him were 2 enormous stone hands forming the ram seal. In front of him, slightly below, were almost all the teams that had passed the second test, lined up in rows. Above, on either side, were 2 balconies accessible by stairs, offering a vantage point to watch the matches when they weren't in progress. Several examiners were also present, all lined up behind the older blonde man. The jonin were all different, some were nervous, others excited, but there was one woman who looked like the most miserable person in the world. Kushina, despite her stoic expression, couldn't hide the depression in her eyes. Several strands of her hair hung loose. Since the second test ended, she had become increasingly worried and seriously considered not watching the preliminaries to avoid seeing the hatred in her son's eyes. Minato glanced at his wife from time to time and felt terrible too. After all, he was the one who suggested leaving Naruto behind, he was the one who believed his son would be treated like a hero as a Jinchuriki, he was the one who caused his family to break apart with the loss of one of its members, and all for what had it really been worth listening to his sensei's words? No, that wasn't a silly question, certainly not. Speaking of Jiraiya, Minato turned his head again to look at the back of the room where the white-haired man was clearly visible. Tsunade and Hiruzen were with him, they had come to witness what would truly be an elimination match unlike any other. Minato turned to the participants and saw the teams of Menma, Hinata, Shikamaru, Neji, Shio, Nagato, the Uchiha clan, Kiri's team, the Suna clan, and Kabuto's team. The older blonde man had to admit he never thought all the heirs would pass the second test, but that was certainly a very good thing. As for Team 9, they had already been genin for a year, perhaps he could propose a promotion to Chunin if they were competent enough. The sound of a door opening caught everyone's attention, and they saw the other Odo team entering the arena. One of them was injured, with a bandaged arm. His other teammates seemed unharmed, though quite dirty. Minato was about to look away, but they heard another door opening, and everyone's minds froze. Kakashi and Mikoto felt a surge of happiness, while Kushina couldn't help but cover her mouth with her hand to stifle a sob, tears welling in her eyes. The genin from Kyumo lined up, looking only at each other, with Naruto at the front. Minato and Kushina looked at their long-lost son for the first time in 15 years and took in every detail of him. He was tall, considerably taller than his other siblings, and well-built with well-defined muscles, which Kushina found rather striking. They focused more on his face, which was wider than Minato's. His mustache was still there, but what caught their attention most was his scarlet hair, with 2 strands framing his face, and the eye patch over his left eye with the long scar that stretched across his entire face. Just seeing the spot where their missing eye should have been at home made their stomachs churn with guilt and a sharp pain gripped their chests. Naruto, for his part, did nothing. His arms were crossed, his eyes closed, including the one behind his eye patch, and he simply stood there like his companions, waiting for Minato to give his speech. Minato, seeing that all the teams were already in place, began to speak. Minato, congratulations, you have all passed the second test, and I'm going to explain what the third test consists of, but first I'm going to tell you the real reason for this exam. Naruto completely tuned out. He knew what Minato was about to tell them. The exam was a war simulation between the countries responsible for their village's prestige. Their victory meant more clients for their villages, and they also represented the next generation. The redhead already knew all of this, but what he hadn't considered was how many genin there were. There were 13 teams, including his own and Suna's, and a total of 49 genin. They would participate in a long elimination round to reduce the number of participants by half. Meanwhile, she began reviewing everything she knew about her opponents. Anything to avoid hearing the voice of the person who had made her childhood a living hell. After a few minutes of explanation that not even the kindest old lady in the world would care about, an examiner arrived who began to explain the rules of the preliminaries, which in the opinion of all the genin seemed to indicate that this jonin was going to die from an illness. After that, an electrical panel appeared on the wall. Jonin, now we'll see who will be the first to fight. On the panel, everyone's names started spinning until they stopped, leaving only 2 names. Sasuke Uchiha from Konoha vs Yoroi Akato from Oto. Jonin, okay, both of you mentioned, stand in the middle of the arena. The rest of you, please go up to the stands. Everyone attended and went up to the stands as the Jonin sensei followed. Naruto leaned against the balcony bar and took a sip from his small gourd. Yoroi, Sasuke Uchiha, heir of the Uchiha clan, let's see what you've got. 1 hour later. For matches had already taken place since the preliminaries began. The first match between the Uchiha and the ninja from Oto was very simple, the only noteworthy aspect was Yoroi's ability to absorb chakra if he grabbed someone. This intrigued the Uzumaki, as this ability resembled one of the Rinnegan's, but his interest didn't last long after the ninja from Oto's hands were charred by a Katan Jutsu from the Uchiha. The second match was between Suigetsu and Omoi. The fight was interesting because Omoi managed to trouble Suigetsu, whose greatest weakness was lightning release. In the end, Omoi lost due to exhaustion, but they shook hands as friends. The third match was between Fu and Sakura. It was quite quick, the Jinchuriki only landed a few blows, and the pink-haired girl fell unconscious. Finally, the fourth match was between Taiyuya and Ino, where the redhead simply unleashed a fire dragon that knocked the Yamanaka girl out of the fight. And the panel began to spin again. Konoha's Kasumi Uchiha vs Oto's Kintsuchi. Jonin, both of you go down to the arena to fight. Both women went down to the arena, although the Uchiha looked at him, but Naruto didn't care about this fight in the slightest. Jonin, begin. The two girls stared at each other analytically, motionless, waiting for the right moment to attack. Then Kin pulled needles with bells attached from her pockets. The Oto ninja threw them, but the Uchiha dodged them effortlessly. But then he felt a pain in his ears as well as a very high-pitched sound in his ears, which made him cover them. Kin, surprised. Now, how will you be able to defeat me? He said, making Kasumi see several kin so that she couldn't see which one was the original, but he took out 3 kunai and threw them, but the 3 went past and stuck to the wall. Kin, not even close. Then she took out more needles which she launched at full speed, which hit the Uchiha who was starting to be in serious trouble, but she had to use her main form of victory. His eyes changed to a crimson red with 2 tomo, signifying that he would use the Sharingan, and thanks to that he was able to easily dodge the next needles and quickly made hand seals. Kasumi, great fireball technique. A large fireball was launched menacingly towards Kin, who managed to dodge it by a few centimeters but suffered a few burns. Kin, shit, but he didn't have time to dodge because he was hit by a fire dragon that caused him to suffer third-degree burns and lose consciousness. Jonin, winner Kasumi Uchiha of Konoha. Kasumi smiled brightly and was congratulated by her friends, but she glanced at Naruto, who hadn't even noticed the fight. Her happiness plummeted, and she sadly went upstairs back to her sisters. And the panel began to rotate. After that, some interesting fights took place, such as a battle between sisters, Yujito vs Samui. The fight was very good, with exchanges of attacks and jutsu, but the blonde with the ponytail emerged victorious due to her superior speed and flexibility. However, they shook hands like sisters. Then there was a very boring fight between Ten and Temari. Apparently, the girl with the bun-shaped hairstyle was a specialist in using weapons. And that was all. Against a futon user like the blonde, it was a total massacre that ended with a crushing victory for the blonde. The next match was between Shino Aburame and Guren. It was a quick fight. Despite using his insects, Shino stood no chance against Guren's Shoten, which created several crystals that were launched at Aburame, who fell defeated from the cuts and wounds inflicted. The panel rotated again. Jonin, Mito Namikaze from Konoha vs Yuko Terumi from Kiri. Myth, it's finally my turn. He said to jump into the arena just like Yuko. Jonin, begin. Mito lunged headfirst towards Terumi, who took advantage of this and landed a punch on Mito's stomach. The blow hurt, but she didn't back down. She was able to create a shadow clone that hit Yuko, who recoiled from the blow but made some hand seals. Yuko, Uton acid bullets. Then he launched several acid bullets, which Mito barely dodged, but he was hit by a jet of water that Yuko created while she was dodging the acid bullets. The jet of water sent her crashing into the wall, but she created several shadow clones that quickly approached. Yuko, Katan Fireball. The fireball was launched at the clones, most of which were destroyed, but from the cloud of smoke, the original Mito, along with 4 other clones, spun in the air and managed to connect with a diving kick that stunned Terumi, who couldn't react when Mito and the 4 clones gave him a headbutt that made him bleed a little, and finally the clones and Mito gave him a multiple hook that lifted him into the air. Then Yuko looked down and saw Mito, with the help of a clone, creating a ball of light blue chakra. Myth, Rasengan. The ball hit Yuko squarely, sending him flying towards the wall. He was left unconscious while the medical team picked him up. Jonin, Namikaze Myth winner. All her friends congratulated the blonde girl who went up happily, and the screen spun again as everyone watched intently to see who the participants would be. Well, Lee and Menma's shouts of wanting to fight were a sure sign. Konoha's Esachiyo Namikaze vs Suna's Zabaku no Kenkuro. The blonde with a mustache took a deep breath before giving a determined look. Shio, okay, it's my turn. Kushina, good luck, he said, placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. After receiving encouragement from her friends, Shio jumped over the railing and onto the sand. Jonin, let the fight begin. Shio didn't move an inch as she studied her opponent. Normally she would have drawn her sword and charged straight at Kankuro, but the 2 days she spent in the forest of death had matured her. It was all thanks to her Oni-chan, who had learned to be less impulsive and more thoughtful. She still had to work on it, and this was the best time to start. Kankuro, for his part, took the object from his back and placed it on the floor while staring at her without blinking. The two opponents glared at each other defiantly. This situation lasted for several minutes, much to the discomfort of those present. The blonde stared intently at her opponent as she pondered. Shio, that bandaged thing is waiting for me to make the first move. It must be some kind of weapon, and it doesn't seem to have any other defenses. I should take a chance, the blonde thought. The truth was, this situation was starting to drive her crazy. She wasn't used to this kind of thing. Looking closely at the object, he decided to get rid of it in Kankuro. The girl took 4 shurikens and threw them towards her opponent before preparing her technique by making hand positions. Shio, shuriken's shadow clone. Most were surprised to see the shurikens multiplying at an alarming rate until a wall of steel hurtled toward Kankuro. He panicked, grabbing the wrapped object and pulling it behind him. The shuriken struck the object, which was propelled by inertia, taking the object with it. The shurikens disappeared in puffs of smoke, and everyone could see the result. Shio was mortified. She thought she had killed her opponent, but everyone could see that the remains weren't Kankuro's, but rather those of the object. They were all very confused until they saw blood oozing from the object. The bandages were quickly removed, revealing Kankuro, who was bleeding profusely and had a terrified expression. Apparently, the puppet was unable to fully protect Kankuro. Kankuro, I give up, he said hurriedly, fearing for his life. When the Jonin saw that Kankuro was in danger of bleeding to death, he hurried to give the verdict. Jonin, winner Shio Namikaze. The blonde stared in astonishment as the medics rushed Kankuro to the infirmary. That was it. He'd used a technique to study his opponent and still won. The blonde girl with pigtails turned to see the applause from her friends and her mother and smiled at them. But as her eyes drifted to the spectators' balcony, she also saw her older brother. The redhead smiled at her and nodded. That smile made Shio's own smile grow exponentially. Then the blonde went up to the balcony to join her team. Kushina, congratulations, darling, the mother said, hugging her daughter, although Shio felt that her mother's attitude was somewhat subdued. Yakumo, well done Shio. Sai, that's true, although it was rather quick. Shio reluctantly had to agree with Sai that his victory was pure luck. But then everyone turned their gaze to the panel and everyone's eyes froze when they saw the result. Naruto Uzumaki from KUMO vs Neji Hyuga from Konoha. Silence reigned in the room as everyone stared at the redhead, who was no longer in the stands. Without anyone noticing, not even Minato, he was already in the arena, arms crossed, one eye closed. Meanwhile, the Hyuga couldn't stop laughing sadistically. Neji, it seems fate has given me the opportunity to have my revenge. Guy, Neji, please don't do anything stupid. Both of them, already in the arena, looked at each other, one with indifference and the other with hatred. Jonin, begin. Neji adopted his clan stance while activating the Byakugan in all its splendor. Neji, prepare yourself, Kyumo ninja, your destiny is to die here. The Uzumaki looked at him indifferently. Naruto, whatever you say, he said to put his legs slightly forward and, bending down a little, flexing his legs, he put his right arm open vertically with his fingers flexed and his left arm in the same position but close to his left leg. Most looked puzzled at the strange posture, with the exception of Kyumo and Minato, who stared in astonishment at the posture. Minato, that position is unacceptable. Neji lunged forward in fury, ready to beat Naruto to death. But mid-jump, the dark-haired man felt all the air leave his body and an excruciating pain pierce his lungs as he was sent flying and fell to the ground. Almost everyone stared at the situation in shock. For everyone, even the Sannin and Minato, it was as if Naruto had suddenly disappeared. The Hyuga struggled to his feet, staring at the spot where he had been struck. His jacket, where he had been hit, was burned with 5 black marks. Looking back at his opponent, he saw he was in the same position, but with a distinct difference. Naruto's right hand was releasing small shocks. "Menma, what just happened?" I shouted, asking the question everyone wanted to ask. "Kimimaro, ferocious lightning taijutsu." Everyone looked at him, confused. Kimimaro, by combining 2 of his styles, Naruto-sama is able to use a style that almost no one can see. The Hyuga got up with great difficulty, furious at having been thrown to the ground so easily. "Naruto, even though I already have a slight idea why you hate me so much." The only response from the Hyuga was a cry of rage as he charged forward again. Neji tried to attack Naruto and block his chakra points, but before he could touch him, the redhead disappeared. Or at least that's how it was, because thanks to his Byakugan, the Hyuga saw that the Uzumaki was to the right, which he exploited, taking advantage of the opening Neji left. He didn't have time to react. Naruto struck him again, this time on the shoulder. But Neji used chakra in his feet to avoid being blown away, but he still flew very far away, but he was still standing, so he charged forward. Minato watched as the Hyuga tried again to hit his son, but Naruto disappeared again and this time hit Neji from behind, sending him flying again. The same thing had happened several times before, and Neji was feeling the effects of Naruto's attacks. He felt tired and powerless against this opponent he couldn't hit, but the rage he felt continued to burn uncontrollably. But when Naruto was about to hit Neji again, he started to spin around. Neji, rotation. A rapidly spinning chakra dome repelled Naruto's attack, forcing him back a considerable distance. Naruto saw that his hand was damaged by the dome, but by channeling chakra into his yang seal, a golden chakra enveloped his hand as his wounds healed. Those who had not witnessed his healing abilities were surprised to see the strange phenomenon, especially Jiraiya and Tsunade. "Tsunade, what kind of technique is that?" "Jiraiya, that's not the Nine-Tails chakra." Once his wounds were healed, Naruto released the Raijin no Ken from its seal and pointed it at Neji. A blade of lightning shot from the tip and hurtled toward its target. Neji, rotation. Once again, the dome appeared, stopping the sword, but Neji continued spinning, just as the Uzumaki expected. He then summoned a chakra chain that traveled until it coiled around the dome structure at ground level. After it had wound around several times, Naruto suddenly contracted the chain, and it closed around the lower part of the dome. The redhead wasn't aiming for the body, but for the feet. The dome fell, and Neji, with his feet chained, was prevented from rotating, and the sword's beam struck him. Neji, gay, Neji. He was about to jump into the arena to stop the fight but stopped when he saw that Naruto had stopped. With the lightning blade dissipated, Neji fell to the ground and Naruto released his grip on the boy and returned his chakra chain. "Naruto, I don't think he'll get up." The Jonin, who was impressed by the boy's skill but attentive enough to hear the redhead, and seeing that the Hyuga wasn't going to get up, the Jonin was going to give his verdict. "Neji, wait." He screamed in great pain and everyone saw Neji trying to get up. "Naruto, why are you so insistent on ending my life?" Neji clenched his teeth in fury. "Neji, why should they pay for what they did? I won't stop until I avenge my father." "Naruto, so I was right, you are the son of Hisashi Hyuga."